Welcome to Truth Be Told About Going Wild. I'm your host, Robert Hensley, and this is the podcast inspired by the principles of personal rewilding. Today, I would like to talk a little more about the practice of personal rewilding, specifically as that relates to the upcoming holiday, Imbolc, which we celebrate on February 1st. If you celebrate it, it's a pagan feast day. Celebrates the midpoint between winter and spring, and I think that it's important for us to review the ideal of personal rewilding, because it's not about escaping society and running off into the woods, right? Although that does sound nice sometimes. But personal rewilding is also about remembering, right? Going back into the past, and digging up the things that we were taught to forget, right? If we look at rewilding, right, as something different from conservation, right, which is where we see wolves being reintroduced into Yellowstone Park, or we see forests that are allowed to go au natural, right, to reclaim abandoned land. Personal rewilding for us, right, does include the slow, intentional return to natural rhythms, right, our alignment to the natural world. And that also includes really tapping into our instincts, right, that part of us that is the most natural. Right? It's our capacity to listen to our bodies, to the land, to the seasons, to the cycles, and the shifts that are happening all around us. And we have been conditioned institutionally to ignore the signals, right, that we get from nature about change and how things are shifting, and maybe what that means for our own rhythms, right, being aligned. If we really think about it, we're taught, right, from a very early age to ignore hunger, push through exhaustion, stay seated for 8 hours, to only use the restroom when we have permission, to raise our hand to speak, and that we have to stay productive, even when the rest of our being, our soul, is seeking rest. And so, personal rewilding does ask a really simple and yet incredibly radical question. What happens when we stop fighting nature? Right? And that is where aligning ourselves with the natural world, the second pillar or foundational principle of personal rewilding, comes in. And that's where things like Imbolc comes in, right? Like, it's again, February 1st, the midpoint between winter and spring. We know that the weather is still cold, but the light has returned in a way that we can start to see that the days are getting longer, right? But it's not a flashy holiday. There are no fireworks. There's no big harvest tables. Just like the holiday itself, it exists in the in-between, right? Imbolc, the word, means in the belly, because during this season, right, just beneath the surface, right, in the belly of the earth, life is still stirring. Right. And this is a holiday that is sometimes connected to the Celtic goddess Brigid, or the what is now one of the patron saints of Ireland, Saint Brigid, who is often associated with fire, healing, poetry, and crafts. And this is a time when we are forced to think more about the transformational aspect of the winter season, right? It's about paying attention to those subtle shifts, right, that we see happening around us, right? We're not taking those for granted. So if we look deeper into this holiday, Imbolc teaches us how to listen to what's emerging, right? It's not what's already here and loud, right? It's not a forced experience, right? It's something that in the process of rewilding, we prepare space for it. This is the time for cleaning out old debris, whether that's a house, a room, a corner, right? It's about tending hearth fires because remember, traditionally our ancestors would light a fire at the beginning of winter that never went out, right? The hearth fire. It's about, the tools, the things that we use every day to bless those, to show them gratitude, to be incredibly thankful for their presence and the help that they give us. It's a great time for setting intentions that we haven't really put into words yet, right? This is not necessarily a time of great productivity, and that's okay. Because if the world is resting, why shouldn't you? But what it is a time for is introspection and reflection about readying ourselves, preparing, planning for the season ahead, right? So this might be a time when we are asking ourselves what we would love to see kind of come through for us in the coming year. Those things that, where we might want energy to return to us in some way, whether that is in our bodies, in our gardens, in our homes, just in our lives in general. And it's a great time for, again, thinking and having ideas and not being afraid to step away from an idea, not killing it completely, but knowing that there is time to think about that and to plan within this season, right? And, this is one of the things that we don't really talk a lot about, but we should. Rewilding is a personal, okay, we call it personal rewilding because it is a personal experience. Every person is going to have a different version of what wildness is, right? For some people, that is going to be walking barefoot in the forest. For others, it's going to be finding a way to reclaim a sense of creativity and belonging after years of silence or non-action. And for some, it's really about learning to take their cues from nature, of being able to find moments of great aggressive growth and then take moments of rest and not feeling guilty about that, right? So if we think about Imbolc and how that connects, because it is a holiday that is connected to fire, there's a lot of lighting of candles. We think about fire and how that starts as something small and it grows to something larger if we want it to, or we can keep it small, right? And personal rewilding for every one of us, no matter what our goal is, honors scale, right? We only go as large or we keep it as small as we want, right? There's no dramatic leaps, right? But there is a quiet, simplistic commitment, right? Once you step onto that path and you start the journey of rewilding, it's something that you really only get to experience the benefits of that journey if you are committed to staying on that path, right? It's about not necessarily becoming new, but rediscovering parts of yourself that will feel new. Things that, again, we have been conditioned to turn our backs to. And it's really, really about remembering who and what you already are. It's probably the best way to say that. And so, again, whether or not you follow, a pagan calendar or a Christian calendar or not, or maybe you don't follow any calendar whatsoever and you're just following nature, that's fine. But to understand something like Imbolc, right, a celebration, a tradition that is eons old, that our ancestors started and celebrated, helps us again to reconnect and realign to the cyclical nature of the natural world. And in doing so, allows us to be more in tune to our wild self, that wild being that is at our core. So, if that's something that you are interested in, there will be a link in the description of this episode so that you can learn more about Imbolc. And remember, there are 3 opportunities each week to learn more from the Truth Be Told family of podcasts on the Club Paranormal channel on YouTube. That's Tony Sweet on Fridays with the original Truth Be Told, Bonnie Burkert on Wednesdays with Truth Be Told Transformation, and of course, Truth Be Told About Going Wild on Monday. And all of those shows go live at 3 p.m. Pacific on their respective days. And if you're interested in learning more about what I'm working on, please feel free to visit my website at Robert Hensley Nature Reconnect .com. Actually, that's wrong. I forgot my own website there for a minute. It's www.rhnaturereconnect.com. Again, that's rhnaturereconnect.com. And if you are looking for online support, if you're looking for something that you can kind of learn more at your own speed, at your own pace, a community that you can join, feel free to join Personal Rewilding with Robert Hensley. It's a new community on Patreon, and you can find that at patreon.com/CW/Robert Hensley Nature Reconnect. There are 2 tiers. There's a free community tier, and there's an exclusive membership tier, which is $15 a month, so you can check that out. If you happen to be in the Northeast in March, I am hosting a 1-day winter reflection rewilding workshop in the heart of the Laurel Highlands of Pennsylvania on March 14th. That's a Saturday from 10 to 5. And that will be happening at the Laurelville Retreat Center. And you can find more information about that on my website or on my socials. Or if you go to Eventbrite and search Winter Reflection Rewilding Workshop, you'll get the ticket info. So please let me know if you have any questions or comments or concerns. And until next time.